Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. Today, we are here to take a look at Jufufu, the next upcoming character in Zenless Zone Zero. So unfortunately today I have to introduce you guys to Jufufu in her character select screen because we are indeed stuck in action. So Belle is kind of stuck in some sort of action going on. So what is Jufufu all about? She is our second S-rank featured fire stun agent and actually our third fire stun agent in the game. Of course, we have Lighter, the other S-rank fire stun agent, and we have Kaleda, the standard S-rank fire stun agent. So this job market is getting really saturated for fire stun agents, but here we have another one, and Jufufu is definitely quite different from the other two. Lighter is more, spends more time on field and stuff like that. Kaleda's got, her own playstyle, and Jufufu is more of an off-field stun agent, preferring to actually spend time off-field in order to perform her aftershock chain attacks that stun the enemy. And let's go ahead and take a quick look at this little animation showcase that I compiled for you guys for Jufufu.
"2,000 years later."
This video was filmed on the early access server and is not indicative of the final product. There may be some changes on release, so be sure to check the comments down below to see if there are any. So the first thing you might notice about Jufufu is that she's got a little buddy here that is protecting us from the horrifying turfing level 10s. As you can see, is just automatically attacking any of these little guys that come towards us. And that's going to be a core part of her gameplay, is her little Hui buddy attacking the enemy. And oh my god, you can see that Hui stopped attacking to join Jufufu for her idle animation in combat. So now let's go ahead and make our turfing buddies, a little less annoying. And you will notice that when this Hui guy attacks, her might bar builds up. And what does the might bar do? Well, while Jufufu is off field, if Hui attacks the enemy, she will actually consume 100 might in order to perform her chain attack from off field. And as we can see, when she performs that chain attack, the enemy is getting stunned very, very effectively. So one more hit and bam. Just like that, she performs her chain attack from off field. Once she performs that chain attack from off field, she gains this buff. What is this buff? This buff is part of her core skill where all squad members gain the Tiger's Roar effect, increasing their crit damage by 20%. And when Jufufu's initial attack, so her attack stat prior to going into combat, is greater than or equal to 2,800, every additional 100 attack further increases crit damage by 5% up to a maximum of an additional increase of 30%. So Jufufu can give your entire team up to 50% additional crit damage if she has 3,400 attack. Then, while in Tiger's Roar state, character's chain attack ultimate damage also increases by 20 to 40%. So a very substantial buff to both chain attack and ultimate damage. And finally, Jufufu's impact is increased by 50 and it lasts for 30 seconds. So effectively you have 100% uptime on this buff. And as we can see, if we take a look at their stats, we can see the 80% crit damage from this buff. We can see her attack is indeed over 3,400, and this buff applies to the entire team. Okay, so why is it 80%? It is instead of 50%. It is because she also has the King of the Summit equipped, which gives another 30% crit damage. Also see here that Yixuan has the buff, 50% crit damage, 20% chain attack damage, and 40% ultimate damage. So characters that rely on ultimate damage and to a certain extent chain attack damage are going to heavily benefit from Jufufu being on the team. And the next really cool thing to note about Jufufu is you will see this number right here is 4,000. So if you've been playing Zenless Zone Zero, you will know that 3,000 decibels tends to be the limit. However, with Jufufu on the team, now the limit is 4,000. But wait, that's not all, because if you use a character's ultimate, specifically if it's an attack or rupture agent, then that character will get refunded 300 decibels. So normally when you use your ultimate, it costs 3,000 decibels, and you should be at 1,000 decibels in this situation. Okay, actually I need to turn off unlimited decibels. Sorry. So let's go ahead and use her ultimate this time without unlimited decibels. And we can see she's now at 1,300 instead of the expected 1,000. But that's not all, because Yixuan has 2 ultimates. So we're gonna go ahead and fill up her other ultimate really quick. There we go, 3 full EX, 1, 2, and 3. And now we have her other ultimate. And with this other ultimate, you can expect this to go up by another 300 points. So we should be at 2,581. And indeed, we are, just from using her ultimate. And that is one thing that makes her synergize really well with Yixuan, because Yixuan has 2 ultimates. She is able to take full advantage of that plus 300 decibel gain. Of course, other characters, benefit from that too. Other attack and rupture agents, they will indeed also get that 300 decibels. But for Yixuan, it is doubly as impactful because she gets double the ultimates. Okay, so that about summarizes, just kind of what value Jufufu can provide for your actual, characters and account. Let's take a look at what she can do in combat. So her basic attacks are really goofy as she unleashes the inner cat in her, or I guess tiger. We don't want to upset her too much, or else you're going to be on the receiving end of this. And I have cats, and when they scratch, it does not feel good. So unfortunately, I don't really think that this is going to be the most practical way to use her, but it certainly is a fun and a funny way to use her. And I think you can just pretty much go endlessly. My finger's getting tired, so we're going to end this cat scratch attack. More interestingly is the actual useful parts of her kit. We can see her performing her chain attacks, but when she uses her EX special, she gains a thing called momentum stacks, as well as a bunch of might to fill up that bar. So let's go ahead and use her EX special again to gain those momentum stacks. And we can see that after the chain attack, she will perform this funny Beyblade attack where she keeps bouncing off of the enemy. And not only do those Beyblade attacks generate more might, but they're of course way faster than if Hu-Wei just attacks on his own accord. So another just fun little detail is that you can actually hold her dash attack where she will consume those momentum stacks as well as just bounce off of the enemy. And you can see that the regular bounces like this don't actually generate might, so do keep that in mind. But you can also just spin around the battlefield like this just for fun, right? Just because you can. And should you do it? Yes. And the reason, just because you can. Now, there are a couple other important parts to her kit, including her Liberation Burst ultimate, where she gains a lot of might, but she also gains 6 stacks of momentum. So now, after her ultimate, you can see that she's going to spam chain attacks as well as her momentum-based bouncy Beyblade attacks. And we can see there just like that, 3 chain attacks in a very quick succession, all thanks to being able to use her ultimate. That is a lot of days in a pretty reasonable time window. And finally, one last little detail about her kit in combat is that you can use a defensive assist into assist follow-up, and this will give you a momentum stack once every 10 seconds. So you're not like heavily rewarded for spamming her defensive assist, but you do want to do it every once in a while in order to gain that extra momentum stack. So as we can see, Jufufu is indeed a character who wants to stay off field and allow a character like, for example, Yixuan to stay on field in order to do her stuff. In total, Jufufu provides all of the following at Mindscape Zero. She provides great off-field daze application. She applies 20 to 50% crit damage based on her attack stat via her core ability. She provides up to 30% crit damage via the drive disc set, or other various drive disc set buffs if you choose to, and she provides 20% chain attack damage and 40% ultimate damage, and she increases your max decibels by 1000, and attack and rupture agents gain 300 decibels when they use their ultimate, and finally, if you get her signature Wenjin, that's another 20% damage to the team. As we can see, Jufufu provides a ton of stuff. Now, I did do one quick anecdotal test with Yixuan's ultimate damage, and with just Yixuan, she ended up doing 65,615 damage on the last tick of her decibel-based ultimate. Then with Jufufu, she ended up doing 42% more ultimate damage on the last tick, which was 93,507 damage. And finally, with Jufufu using her signature Wenjin, now Yixuan's ultimate was doing 107,169 damage. So yeah, I think the difference with Jufufu's signature Wenjin seems a bit high, and I haven't done the calcs yet for Jufufu, so I'm gonna have to verify this later, but hopefully this is correct, and yeah. Alright, let's go ahead and pay our favorite buddy, the Butcher, a visit like we usually do, but we can take a quick look at their builds as well. You can see here that Jufufu has the 4-piece King of Summit, and in this case I have the 2-piece Shockstar Disco to help her stunt a bit faster. But with this setup, you will need a decent amount of crit rate rolls to reach the 50% crit rate needed in order to activate the second part of the King of the Summit's drive set buff, so do keep that in mind. And we have, of course, the Shockstar Disco. We have impact, attack percent, and attack percent in order to try to maximize her buffs. You want to get pretty much crit rate and attack percent rolls if possible. You can, of course, swap out the 2-piece Shockstar Disco for the 2-piece Woodpecker Electro to help you reach that 50% crit rate necessary for the King of the Summit drive set. All right, let's go ahead and pay our good old Butcher friend a visit with this team. And yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and do this. Now, I always like saying hi to the Butcher at least once per these videos, because there's a nice old buddy of ours and he's such a good sport, allowing us to always use him as a punching bag. Very considerate of him, considering, you know, I don't know, I guess we're here to try to murder him. So yeah, good fellow, all things considered, although he's a bit menacing. And honestly, these days, the Butcher is like so squishy. I remember back in the day, you would like actually have to like stun him. But now, it definitely doesn't feel like that. Because, yeah, he's kind of like the cryo-regisfine of Zenless Zone Zero, where you just like go to test out your character's kits and stuff. You're like, oh yeah, my character's kit works and exists. And the Butcher is a good target for that. So let's go ahead and try some more substantial content than, well, the Butcher. Okay, I've got a couple quick runs that I did for you guys, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do like as much extensive testing as I usually do in terms of like different teams and stuff, because my god, with Genshin Impact's Skirk release, as well as, you know, Genshin Impact having Dahlia, and now we also have Jufufu, all within the span of just a couple days, I am so cooked. Hopefully this video will come out in time, but if not, I apologize in advance. If you want some more detail, like team comparison and guide related content on Jufufu, I recommend checking out I Am Rivenous as well as Kana. 2 good buddies of mine in the Zenless Zone Zero space, and they make great content for the game. But anyway, Yeah, so I literally did one run with Yixuan, so I apologize in advance for the skill issue, but hey, this might be a more decent reflection of what perhaps the average player might play like, which means, you know, it's a reasonable representation of that. But do keep in mind that this team is indeed all at M0U1, so all three characters have their signature Wenjins, although it doesn't really matter that much on Astra, but it does matter on Yixuan as well as, to a slightly lesser extent, Jufufu, because yeah, they are important weapons for especially Yixuan. So yeah, here we go. Basically this team feels very nice, and obviously these characters synergize extremely well. And Yixuan fully benefits from Jufufu. Literally all of Jufufu's buffs actually apply to Yixuan. Unlike, for example, some of the other, actually literally every single other stun agent has some kind of compatibility issue with Yixuan. And for example, Qingyi needs a lot of field time. Lighter obviously doesn't buff ether damage. Trigger's signature Wenjin, and I think Trigger probably has the best compatibility, but her signature weapon shreds defense, which of course Yixuan does not care about the defense shred. And yeah, I mean, the list goes on, right? Every single stunner has their issue. However, Jufufu seems like, you know, literally the perfect stunner for Yixuan. And it just makes them, you know, feel really good to use together, because Yixuan is a field time hogging character. And it was very deliberate for them to put a 10-second cooldown on Jufufu's ability to generate a momentum stack through her defensive assist follow-up. And that way, you know, you don't have to worry too much about spamming, for example, Jufufu's defensive assist. Instead, you can definitely allocate a lot of time. Well, okay, here I am completely messing up against the clones. That's pretty embarrassing. But yeah, so you can allocate a lot of time to actually keeping Yixuan on field and parrying stuff. So you also notice that I've kind of forgotten how to do Yixuan's stun rotation. Now that I'm thinking about it, I remember how to, but I remember while I was playing this, I was like, oh god, wait, oh geez, I have to use the smoke bomb or whatever. But yeah, so as you can see, these runs are some of the least optimized runs I would say on my channel, just purely due to time constraints. So regardless though, yeah, I mean, you guys can see just how fluid of a character Jufufu is, especially with Yixuan. And you're definitely not going to regret getting her for Yixuan. I think the two of them are going to form a very, very powerful core. However, Jufufu's, this is one thing I really like about Zenless Zone Zero right now. And it kind of reminds me of Genshin Impact's early days, and also debatably Honkai Star Rail's early days, where characters that were released were much more universal, right? Like right now in Genshin Impact, you know, you release Skirk, then you release Escoffier, or sorry, you release Escoffier, then you release Skirk. Obviously, these two characters were meant to basically just always be used on the same team together. However, when it comes to Jufufu, when it comes to characters like Yixuan, you know, they do have their flexibility, and especially Jufufu, who has a lot of flexibility in her case, because her additional ability is triggered by having an attack agent or a rupture agent on her party. And let me tell you, she works great with, I would say, every single attack agent in the game. And case in point, I did a quick run with Soldier against Pompey. And I'm sorry I didn't do it against the Priest, because I gotta admit, I am not familiar with his attack patterns right now. You know, I just mashed through it. But yeah, at least Pompey, I have a rough idea of what to do in comparison. So a little bit more experience on Pompey, even though you can probably watch me get my butt kicked. But so Soldier, of course, you know, really appreciates having a fire stunner on her team. Lighter, I would argue. Okay, so this is going to be, you know, a lot of people are going to be debating whether Lighter is better or whether Jufufu is better. Honestly, I don't know. And in fact, I even tried using both at the same time. It is pretty fun, but yeah, I figured, okay, let me just do more of a standard Soldier team really quick with this. And this one run here, you can see that you are able to spend a little bit more time on field with Soldier, which is nice. And also one really nice thing about Jufufu that, you know, probably might be overlooked, but when you quick assist her onto the field, she stuns the enemy super fast. Like, you know how like some characters, you swap them on and try to initiate the stun, they take a while, But Jufufu, if you have, for example, Astro Yao, and then that triggers the quick assist on the Jufufu, it's like an instant stun. So it's not like, you know, Lighter also has a pretty fast one, but Jufufu makes Lighter look slow, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, one of the fastest options to stun an enemy after, you know, a chain cancel or whatever it might be. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, speaking of attack agents, I'm pretty sure she's going to work well with at least all the ones I can think off the top of my head. Obviously, she'll work well with Evelyn. Evelyn can benefit from high field time as well, because Evelyn needs to build up, you know, all her resources, or ideally for additional chain attacks. But I think it might be a little too much field time for Evelyn, where you might have to end up, you know, using an additional like chain attack outside of stun in order to kind of make use of, you know, the downtime that you're going to experience between the enemy stun window and between Evelyn's stuff being available. So yeah, I'm not fully sure, but that's just kind of like, you know, off the top of my head, because Lighter does deal more days, but Jufufu allows your DPS to have more time on field, kind of similar to Trigger's relationship with other stun agents. But anyway, yeah, Evelyn should work just fine. Soldier works just fine. It's hard to say if like, and I think Silver Soldier Ambi should work just fine as well. Ellen should work just fine. Like if you have an attack agent, name it, and Jufufu will probably work pretty well with them. And one nice thing about Jufufu as well is that she also has the Rupture tag on her, so hopefully future Rupture agents will also work well with Jufufu. But hey, we're just gonna have to wait and see. We don't really know for sure if that's gonna be the case. Of course, you know, playing Future Impact, or I guess Zenless Zone Future is, you know, never really truly recommended. But yeah, so right now the characters are definitely more universal, which is great, and that's one of the things I like about the early lifespan of these games, right? Because now the earlier characters tend to be more universal before they start to really power creep already existing roles, which is a big issue in gacha games. Is once you kind of cycle through all the current version of roles and stuff and current elements and whatever, then it's time to start power creeping, and then you start introducing things like Mavuika Sitlali, or you introduce things like, for example, like Escoffier and Skirk. So yeah, just obviously great universal off-field stun agent. If you like what you see, I don't think Jufufu will disappoint you. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.